was finally on the probable list, which he hasn't been there since, well, I guess questionable before USC. But I maintain he was a frequent person mentioned and used in camp until he got injured. So it could be a massive
he was
weapon
one of the
for
early
LSU.
stories
Yes.
of camp. I mean, just what he had done to his body physically, how he had taken, really Chris Hilton in this offseason looked physically like a football player. I mean, like he had made that transformation to becoming a physically full-time football player is what he looked like. I mean, he is a high-end track athlete. I mean, the guy is top-end speed, comes from a long line. I mean, his dad was a very successful track athlete. You can see it when he runs. You could see it when he was young. I mean, when he would run, you were like, whoa. That is.
I mean, he's been a legend since he was a freshman in high school.
Yeah, his sophomore year, he took a 70-yard screen route in the state championship in the fourth quarter with about 2 minutes left to play to the house versus West Monroe for the win as a sophomore. I mean, and you could see about the third or fourth step, he was gone. I mean, it was. There's a great shot of the touchdown, and Brewerton is in the background, and Brewerton knows it at about the second step. I mean, like, Brewerton, you can see he's like, whoa, like, he's gone. We're about to win the state champion. Yeah, we're about to win the thing. And I mean, like, he kind of lets his headset, like, he kind of throws his headset. It may have been at the end of the game. It may not have been with 2 minutes left. I mean, it might have been the last play of the game. But yeah, I mean, Hilton's been a legend for a long time, especially in South Louisiana. I mean, a lot of people have known his name. And, he's made a couple of plays here at LSU. The thing that still gives me the feel that he's going to really help is that not a lot of, nobody can do what he can. I mean, it feels like nobody can do what he can. Xavion Thomas feels like he could. They haven't really allowed him to just run vertical, stretch the field, go, and let's see what happens. Let Nussmeier just kind of unleash one on you real quick. You can do that with Chris Hilton, 70% of the snaps that he's on the field, and not a lot of people are going to be able to keep up with him. And Nussmeier's got the arm to put it wherever he needs it. So, I think that getting Chris Hilton back, especially for this push right here, getting into the teeth of it, starting next week with South Alabama and then getting into, conference play when Ole Miss pulls into town on October 12th, that, if he's confident, fully healthy, and up to top-end speed, I mean, look how small. I mean, like he's a baby. He's probably 15 years old in that picture, running past West Monroe for the state title. I think that was like the first one. Like that was the one that kind of got Zachary going. But it was, to have Hilton back. Are we good on this sound?
Oh, absolutely.
Let's hear what Brian Kelly had to say about Chris Hilton as he was updating his wide receiver status yesterday and where he is coming back from the injury.
One second.
But we were talking about Hilton and just like what he did to his body physically in the offseason. I mean, he's recognized as kind of that dual threat athlete where, he's a track football guy, elite at both. But usually those guys, when they come over to the football field, it's like a Ferrari. You bring it out.
If the oil ain't changed, I'm not.
Yeah,
I'm not
right.
Going.
I mean, couple pieces of gravel on the blacktop. We spin out here. I mean, it's not going to run like it probably should. And to get him back would be awesome for the offense because I think with Nussmeier's skill set and what they've already shown that they have, I mean, they've got a real solid, effective game plan from throwing the football. And you add in that piece that, you try to take that underneath stuff away from Mason Taylor, who was named to the Mackey Award watch list yesterday as one of the best tight ends in the country. You start to try and take that stuff away from C.J. Daniels, Mason Taylor, Aaron Anderson, and then, you look behind you and Chris Hilton's running by himself, I think that brings a whole new dynamic to the offense, to the play caller, to the quarterback position that they don't really have that right now, and they're clicking at a very high level. Here is Kelly talking about Hilton and where he stands.
No, we're not giving one out. We don't have to. That was sarcastic. I mean, it's not going to be seen that way. Obviously, it's going to go out as, Coach Kelly, refused to give out the injury report, but it'll be our laugh right here. Let's see. Chris Hilton is probable. Jalen Lee is out with a shoulder. And West Weeks is questionable. He'll be a game day decision. Those are really the three guys. But I'm not giving out an injury report because I don't have to.
Nice fake media laugh there at the end. Couple of chuckles. I think they're starting to get BK's sarcasm. That seems like that's kind of a daily event. Here he is more talking about Chris Hilton.
Well, he's been in the program now 3 years, so experience certainly, knows the offense very well. It's easy to talk about speed, and he certainly has it. I think what he brought and what emerged late in the season and into the bowl game was tracking the ball extremely well down the field. So, that's an element that we're hopeful that we start to see a little bit more of, although, I thought we did a much better job against South Carolina pushing the ball down the field. But once Chris is, back. Now, look, you can't be out, almost a month and then just jump in and here's Chris Hilton's, tearing it up. It takes a while for him, and I hope everybody's expectations are at a point where he can't come in and just, pick up where he left off. It's going to take a few weeks for him to get back into action, but he's going to help us, and he's going to be a main player in what we do before the season's over.
Yeah, I mean, I think there has to be that tempered build-up with Hilton in the sense of, he's not going to show up first game back and be beating everybody for 65-yard bomb touchdowns. A lot like we were talking about the type of athlete he is. I mean, you kind of got to get him going. You kind of got to work him up to speed. You kind of have to have him, feeling confident physically to go out there and play at his tip-top spot. So I expect Chris Hilton at some point to be a major factor on what LSU is doing offensively. I think that he is going to be someone that, really helps this team at some point to bring a new dynamic of what they can't really offer it. They don't have it right now. It feels like as somebody that can go out there and just beat you over the top every single time, or somebody that you have to pledge support to every defensive play that he's on the field to make sure he's accounted for and, most probable with help over the top. You're rarely going to find just one person that can run with that guy. I'm not saying that he's going to be a Biletnikoff winner, but I'm saying he definitely does open up a lot of things around him, and he brings a dynamic that LSU, they're missing. And they don't really have, for as effective as they are offensively, and they're really good offensively, they are missing that component of just kind of like, hey, push everybody out the box right here. They've gotten the big play, but a lot of that has been Nussmeier kind of scrambling around, buying some time, keeping the pocket and play alive. And, it's just a scramble drill. You give Aaron Anderson 6 or 7 seconds to run around out there, nobody's going to be able to guard him. And,
recess.
He's playing as confident. It looks like he's at Carr. You're starting to see that personality back. You're starting to see the celebrations, the encouraging people, encouraging his teammates. Anderson is you can tell he's finding his footing. I think, bringing Chris Hilton back allows Aaron Anderson to do even more things. Truly getting him one-on-one on some of these bubbles and intermediate underneath stuff where he can just catch, make one person miss, and it's nothing but green. It's nothing but playmaking ability in front of him. So, more from Kelly. Here he is. We'll just go down the list here, Lloyd. We'll skip off those Hilton ones that we heard, but here he is yesterday opening the press conference.
Well, it's a little spicy with the opener.
Good afternoon. Jeez. From now on, I'll come in and say, I hope you all had a shitty day. Maybe that'll get a response out of you. Okay. Who's up? Who wants to start? Anybody? Anybody?
Who was the first to raise their hand after a spicy intro from Brian Kelly?
Man defined meats.
Man defined meats.
Flavor,
Where flavor and spice really do say it all.
Good afternoon. Jeez. From now on, I'll come in and say, I hope you all had a shitty day. Maybe that'll get a response out of you. Okay. Who's up? Who wants to start? Anybody? Anybody? I knew we were going to be down 17 early on in the game, and I wanted that extra possession. No, I mean, I think, you know, when you go on the road against an SEC team, you know, you're looking at it from a perspective of where are our strengths, where do we perceive, you know, maybe they're not as strong. And as we did a deep dive into that game, you know, earlier in the week, I felt in talking to the coordinators that was the best place to be.
That was BK talking about his team coming back from 17 on the road and what his belief was inside the locker room on the secondary, on the sideline. Here he is talking about the secondary and what the approach is as far as subbing in personnel.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're going to see a lot of guys playing at that position, as we talked about, right, with, you know, Harold playing the Sam linebacker position. We've got to make room for Major Burns because Major's been a consistent player for us. So now he's playing some safety, and you know, clearly, you know, we've talked about this, that we want to get, you know, Deshaun Spears on the field as well. So you have that, you know, kind of mix where you've got a veteran with a freshman, you know, which makes sense to us. And then you've got, you know, Gilbert, who's a veteran player, and Allen, you know, who's a first-time starter. So, you know, those are the four guys that have been in the mix. Kylan has also gotten an opportunity. So I think you'll start to continue to see, you know, as many as five safeties, you know, playing for us. And, you know, I think that rotation works for us right now, and we'll see how that continues to go.
I love the options that they have at safety. I really do. I think that when you look at the young group, obviously Jordan Gilbert has struggled a little bit here at the start of the season, and he brings you some veteran ability back there. But when you look at the younger group, I think that they're working some things out, obviously, as far as, you know, as finding their way goes in the rotation and who plays. But, you know, the Deshaun Spears, the Kylan Jackson, you know, the Joel Rogers who's in the program. I mean, those guys are going to be some real good, solid SEC safeties, it feels like, especially Spears. You know, I mean, as much as you're seeing him early on here step in and get some play and get some run. Now, obviously, like we said, I mean, a freshman, and you're going to have to live with some of the mistakes that are being made and some of the growing pains that you're just going to have to go through with a first-year player, especially playing early in his first year. But, you know, that at some point usually rights itself with a high-end player. I believe Spears to be very much a high-end player when you're talking about a guy who's got potential to be a really solid safety, somebody that can really, you know, do all the things. You know, I mean, come up, run support, can cover it. Just good athlete back there. He's to me kind of the one out of the mix that you look at and say, watch him. You know, he feels like he's going to be somebody that, you know, turns into a possible all SEC type player.
I think that's part of maybe why you see some of these coverage bust, or not even, I wouldn't even say there's been coverage bust, but maybe run fit assignment bust, is because at some point you're trying to marry a little bit of skill with lack of experience. I think you saw it with Weeks getting his quote unquote first start of the year, where there were some times he's a little overzealous, where he was like, I would say, poking his head inside and getting beat on the outside, where it's overzealous because I'm trying to make a play. I want to be able to play again. And the same thing happens a little bit on the back end, where it's like you can see the talent in these guys, but if it doesn't match up with what you want to do scheme-wise, that's when you saw Major Burns back there. There's a reason he keeps playing. He knows the assignment. It's just more of like, then you see some guys that are probably a little bit more talented, maybe, and the younger guys with you see it in Kylan Jackson, you see it in Deshaun Spears, where the reason you brought him to campus, but it's more about now just getting the alignment assignment part right.
Yeah. And go through it, go make the mistake, go watch film, go back out there, fix it.
Well, that's what these 2 weeks are for.
Yeah.
Because there's probably going to be a Guggenheim moment again if you keep playing younger players. Whether it happens in the third or fourth quarter, people are still going to gripe about it because they don't want to see it anymore. But if you're playing younger players and throughout a 4-quarter football game, if they don't know what they're really doing, then you're trying to get reps and trying to add experience, there might be a run fit missed. There might be a pass coverage blown. You just hope that, I'd imagine, LSU can score enough points to where it doesn't really affect the game.
Speaking of Guggenheim, a big playmaker for Nichols a couple of weeks back in Tiger Stadium, Brian Kelly was talking about how this defense eliminates big plays and is able to take those out of the repertoire for the opponents. Here he was describing.
Yeah, the elimination of big plays, right? I mean, if you take away the 2 big plays, that's a pretty good defensive effort. So eliminating the big plays is probably the most important thing. I would say layers to our defense, and it's sometimes difficult when you're playing a running quarterback to have layers because you need to be playing cover 0. So if you're not cupping the ball and doing a really good job, structurally, you can give up big plays. But it's eliminating the big plays. That's really number one. I think we've done a really good job in so many other areas that it gets glossed over by the explosive plays, and rightly so. And, we've been really good in getting turnovers, creating havoc on third down. We just have to eliminate the big plays.
Kelly talking about what his defense needs to improve on, and I think he's right. They've done some really good things that have been glossed over because they've given up some explosive plays. They've given up some plays that obviously you have to fix, like he's talking about. But they've done some things good. They've gotten off the field in big spots. They've made plays when plays needed to be made. Can they improve? Vastly. But, we all knew that Baker had his work cut out for him in trying to rebuild it and trying to get it back. And things like last weekend of starting Deshaun Spears, moving Harold Perkins outside, putting Whit Weeks on the inside permanently. Those are things that last year you were begging and pleading to see. Like, this is obviously not working. Try something else. And, Baker has shown his creativity early on here is something that's very much a strong suit of his. And I think the defense is in good hands. I think as they continue to recruit at a high level, and they have, you look at what they have coming in, you see that, look, they have not hit on everybody. I think they would like to have the spring transfer portal back again and see if they couldn't have more success there. But, they are bringing players in that can change the perspective of LSU defensively, and they've got the coach in place. And one of the guys that was a great sign of that last weekend was Braden Swinson. He was awarded SEC Defensive Player of the Week. He had 3 sacks on the road against South Carolina. He looked dominant at times. He looked unblockable during some series. Here was Brian Kelly talking about a senior defensive end, transfer from Oregon, who's having a standout final season.
The splash plays are sacks, right? And, certainly he was the SEC Player of the Week, and deservingly so. He had the 3 sacks. I think the growth of Swinson has been in terms of what he's doing off the field. and what he's doing in terms of the other assignments. Look, pass rushing is, third down, but he's got to stop the run. He's got to drop into coverage. He's got to do so many other things. I think what's really showing in his play is really the overall commitment to all phases of the game. And then off the field, he's a SWAT leader for us. His SWAT team is outstanding. He's holding players accountable. That's really where he's leaving a big mark into the program in those areas. And I know the splash plays get all of the publicity, and good for him. But he's doing a job that's being recognized in the program as well.
Brian Kelly talking about Braden Swinson, who's having a really good start to his final season. You can see it. He's playing at a very, very high level, man. I mean, last week there were times when South Carolina looked like they had no answer for him. I mean, he's looking like if he can stay healthy, he could have a real, high-end type season. I mean, he's making a lot of money right now. I mean, he's proving and can stay on this track. I mean, he will be a high draft pick.
He was one of the more outspoken people after Matt House left. For like you saw the LSU program, and certainly defensively, where they were kind of letting their thoughts be known now that Matt House has left the program. And Swinson was the one that posted the kick rocks video because he was like, yeah, get out of here. I'm not being utilized the way that I was told I was going to be. And he didn't play a lot last year, or at least not
enough.
Not enough.
I mean, I think he's the greatest example of Matt House's insubordination. I mean, really, like, what are we looking at? I mean, every time, was he number 13 last year? Every time he got out there, he made plays, and then they kept going back to Gofu. I mean, it was like, what is going on? How is Swinson not getting more reps?
Or between Swinson and Womack.
Yes.
But every time they came in the football game, it was a pressure or a sack or something that felt like it changed the game. And now you're seeing that bear fruit with Swinson, and I would imagine you get Womack back for this week.
Sounds like it.
I don't think he was listed on the injury report, and he was questionable to probable last week.
Final one here, and Seville Jr. brings up a great point. Kevin Peoples deserves a lot of credit.
Yes.
I mean, Peoples was a huge get with Blake Baker. I mean, Baker has brought him everywhere he's been, and that guy has been a standout, and I think Swinson is a great example of that. Here's an update on Trey Holly. Brian Kelly was talking about the running back from North Louisiana and kind of where things stood right now with Holly legally.
We've followed Trey's situation legally, and there's not much that we can do. We hope for a resolution in the case, but this is out of our hands right now. This is a matter that needs to be handled through the courts, and once it's cleared through the courts, then we'll be able to make a decision on his status. Again, I think we've been pretty clear that, he can't play football here until the legal matters have been settled.
So there's the update on Holly, and obviously that is something that people are watching and monitoring and hoping all works out, especially for Holly from a standpoint of the timeliness of it. Does it, you hate it for him just because obviously you hear Brian Kelly. I mean, you can hear that they're monitoring. They want him back, but there's nothing that they can really do. Do
you think you've gotten reps over Caden Durham?
Yes, absolutely. To start the year?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I'd imagine so. Just being a second-year guy in the program,
yeah. But I mean, Holly had a nice end of the year. I mean,
obviously the game against Army, everybody's going to remember when he busted a long one.
He's put in a lot of work. I mean, he's still working out. I mean, he's still, if he got the call today, he could go physically. I mean, obviously. But it just, like Kelly said, I mean, there's just nothing they can do. I mean,
yeah, they obviously Trey Holly has been saying that, has nothing to do with it and pleading his innocence. And then I think it was J.R. Belton his uncle was the judge, or somebody he was related to was the judge, so he had to recuse himself. That pushed it back, and then there was a material change, and the evidence that came forth that somebody identified Trey Holly as the person that shot her. And if he's saying he didn't do any of that, then that's pushed it back again as they introduce new evidence, so it won't be settled until December 18th.
Gross. Damn.
So he's out for the year.
Man. God.